Hello and welcome back to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950. I'm your host, Kelly Kirk.
I'm Joe Kirk.
And I'm Chad Larson.
Before we dive into who our guest is today, Chad is going to remind us of our show's sponsor.
We want to thank the Russell Hampton companies for sponsoring the show. The number one printer for Rotary licensed gear in the world. You can see if you're watching online some of the swag they printed for us. You can check them out at russellhampton.com or bestclubsupplies.com. Check them out, and we want to thank them for sponsoring Russell Hampton.
And don't forget about them for your own personal business. They do also print for businesses.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Joe. Today, our guest is Kay Biga, and she is the District 5580 governor for this current year.
Past
22-23.
She's recovering from her.
Thank you, COVID. It's just, I mean, I can't even use the excuse anymore for COVID. But
no, you really can't.
We are. I know everyone's rolling their eyes right now. It's fine. Go ahead. But Kate has a specific topic that she wants to talk about. Before we go into that, we want to allow our listeners an opportunity to get to know you on a personal level, Kay. And so I'm going to ask the first question. It's pretty simple.
Can't wait.
Where are you hailing from right now as you are on this podcast? Show.
Well, I live in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay.
I'm in my office. I'm an attorney, and I work in my house. So here I am.
What type of law do you practice?
My husband and I have a little boutique firm. We represent small business owners and professionals. So we do estate planning.
Sure.
Real estate and contracts, business formation, those types of topics. I'll give you an example. We represent the doctor, not the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. I like
that. Yeah.
Very nice. And how long have you been practicing?
Oh my gosh. Well, I started law school in 1983. But I actually spent 20 years as a professor at the University of Wisconsin Superior. And I've also owned many businesses. So actually being here in this office, it's been about 14 years.
Okay.
Holy smoke. So you've kind of done all of it. And you know what's really funny is that when you kind of own a business, you always own a business. You know what I mean? Like it's like you don't ever unown a business. It's like, oh, what's the next thing?
Mm-hmm. And when is it that you well, let me back up. Are you a fellow Rotarian? We should just make sure that.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh!
Just served as
cut this out.
Well,
Can you tell that it is a struggle for me right now?
I have a little funny story about how I became a Rotarian, if you don't mind me.
Let's do it.
So back in the day, after women were admitted to Rotary in the late 80s, and for the 100 years before that, if you were going to get into Rotary, somebody had to propose you. You couldn't just be, hey, I'm Kelly, Joe, and Chad, and I want to be in Rotary. Okay, somebody had to identify you, vet you, and you didn't even know this was happening. So anyway, there was a guy up here at the TV station, Joe Golden, who went to my mother and said, hey, do you think Kay would like to be in Rotary? Because it was secret. I wasn't supposed to know about it. My own mother said, absolutely not. She's got 3 kids. She's running our family business. She's simply too busy, would never consider it. So I never heard about this, right? Because it was secret. So about 10 months later, I find out this has happened. And I was like, I want to be a Rotary, right? And I've been deep sixed by my own mother, right? So anyway, I get in. And the punchline is, what do you think my mother did right after that?
Oh,
joined?
Yeah. She joined Rotary.
Oh,
she did. She did.
She's 86.
So hypocrisy knows no bounds.
She's 86 years old. She's in the Superior, Wisconsin club. She gets the most auction prizes of anybody.
Oh, that's
She's
so
been a
great.
great Rotarian all these years. But literally, if I had not found out they had wanted me, now it's a lot easier because you could just say, hey, I'm here. I'd like to join, but not back in the day. So
It's so interesting, and I'm writing it down that there had to be this proposal, and it was more of like the secret formation, it's like underground almost. You're like, "What?"
Well, I visited a club in New Delhi, India, and it was a very unusual club because everybody in there they were husband and wife. There were no single people. And two strange things about it. Well, that these no singles. And I said, well, how come that? Why did you do that? Well, because we don't. Basically, it was they didn't want anybody poaching their spouses.
Mm,
If you get what I mean, they didn't want dating action. They didn't want dating action at the
We're not
Rotary.
gonna let a fox in the hen house. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
But the other part was, in order to get into this club, you had to show your personal financial statement, and they would decide if you had enough money to join that club.
gosh, is that like a co-op?
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
So,
Very
anyway, I've
interesting.
learned a lot because I've visited a lot of international clubs, and I visited the 62 clubs in my own district in this last year and a half. So,
How many miles did you put on? Sorry.
13,500 miles.
Of course you
She
tracked
knows
it.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
My
yeah.
IQ.
Now I have sciatica down my leg because of that driving. But, I went to North Dakota 11 times because if you could just go around in my district, District 5580 has the largest geographic district
Yeah.
in the United States. So it's the whole state of North Dakota, top half of Minnesota, clubs in western Wisconsin, and 4 clubs in Canada.
Fun.
3 in Thunder Bay and 1 in Nipigon. And so, but if you could go logically, like go to North Dakota for 2 weeks and hit all the clubs, but you have to go when they meet, right? So
Yeah.
I'd be driving over there. My number one stop is I would go to the Starbucks in Brainerd. That was my coffee and bathroom stop every trip. But it was quite an effort, but it was a great experience. So.
Well, what about visiting all of the clubs? Like, what was your biggest takeaway? Because if your only experience is your own personal club, you have kind of a jaded experience of Rotary, right? Because it's so different wherever you
Mhm.
go. So, what did you kind of
Well,
gather from all of the clubs?
yeah, well, I don't have that jaded look because when I was a professor, I actually wrote a journal article so I could get promoted on the subject of service organizations and how they grow membership and things. And I actually 15 years ago started the Duluth Superior Eco Club. So
Okay.
we were the first environmentally focused Rotary. Now I just got the most recent update. There are 55 clubs in dozens of countries. And then there are another like 18 clubs that have an environmental association. It's really taken off, but we were the first one in the world, actually.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I've thought about this, but when you apply to be district governor, they say, like, what do you want to accomplish? And what 2 things I wanted were to improve our public image,
Mhm.
like what you're doing, like what Lloyd and Tom or whoever has put, Julie and
Mhm.
uh, all the people that are working on your podcast to get the word out about what we do. So, and that was hard because right when I got in the pipeline, COVID hit. So, and we had clubs that wanted to just shut down. They didn't want to be hybrid. Nobody could work. Our first thing is we offered to pay for Zoom for every club so that we could get them meeting when everything was shut down. But my other big initiative was I wanted to increase the percentage of women in our district.
Mhm.
And so I embarked on the last 5 years has been trainings, speaking, drumming it. We had 1,000 lawn signs that we put out around our entire district.
Mhm.
Um, and in a 5-year period, we've increased the percentage of women by almost 5%,
Wow.
which
That's
is
moving
really,
the needle.
Yeah.
it's very hard to move the needle like that. And at one time when I was still the district governor, 3 of the 4 people in the district governor line were women. It's unheard of. That is
Yeah.
never, I think we kind of like changed the conversation about who are potentially good candidates for being in the leadership,
Yeah.
right? I have something called the Emily Standard. That's my daughter. And She actually was the first president of the Twin Cities Eco Rotary Club.
Yeah.
And but because when the guy who was organizing it, Steve Solbrack, who you may know, he called me, how do you start an eco club? And I said, well, Steve, my daughter just moved down there. Maybe you should ask her to join because she could really, help you get it going. But my attitude is, if Emily won't join it, thinks it's lame, we got to do something different. Right. And so and she finds a lot of Rotary activities to be in that category, but so
we gotta meet this Emily.
Yeah. Well, we've got to look at the next generation. Right. I just spoke to a club in Waconia last week on this topic, and there was a really nice guy. He said, I've been in this club for 37 years. I will not consider not meeting at breakfast, because he really likes the breakfast meeting. It works for him. And I said, well, I don't want to upset you, but there isn't a single person in this room that's going to want you to quit the club. But if you keep it up like this, the club is going to die off and you're not going to make it. Because we did a study, like a data analysis. In our district, the clubs that have the highest percentage of women meet in the late afternoon. The clubs that have the lowest percentage of women meet in the early morning. It's almost death to membership and attendance. And the clubs that have a higher percentage of women also have a higher percentage of people under 40. They kind of go, logically. So we just have to be thinking about, are we still giving the right product to our members at the right time of day, the right day of the week, and the right kind of projects? Because that's what's going to determine whether the clubs can make it or not.
What type of projects, as you talk about projects attract, different demographics, but what do you see attracting the most females?
Well, in my club, we're 67% women. We do all hands-on service. We don't do any fundraising. So the club I originally was in, Club 25 in Duluth, one of the things I really couldn't take was I'd have to sell 40 dozen roses every year. And I'd end up buying them all myself and giving them away to people because I just didn't have, okay, so that doesn't make too much sense for me. But younger people, and I don't know if it's just women want projects that are family friendly. So you can bring your kids along, you can bring your spouse along, or whoever you want, or in my case, my mother. So having family friendly activities. But we have a wonderful club in our district, Staples. And when I went around, I'd say, what's your favorite project? And they said, oh, by far, it's our mowing project. I'm like, oh, like, what do you mean mowing? Well, they all got out there like John Deere riders, and they'd mow together. And then I said, well, what are you mowing? I was kind of fascinated by this. They mow the cemetery. Well, and is Emily going to go? Emily doesn't have a mower. And Emily doesn't want to mow the cemetery. So they don't meet the Emily standard on that project, and it's just, and they love that project, and it's been really great for them. So it's really hard for people to reimagine this works for us, but it's not going to work for a potential new member.
Sure.
That's not their area. Are you all three Rotarians?
Yep. We are. Yep. And we're all in the same club. We do happen to meet early in the morning.
Yeah,
but
you die in the morning side.
Yeah.
But you're a juggernaut over there.
Okay. But as you are mentioning it, there is a little dilemma that's happening in our household where, we had our daughter start at daycare and drop off is at 8:00. And so it's going to be like one of us is, we're going to hopefully figure out a way to make it halvesy, but I get it. I totally get it.
The Waconia group, they meet in a restaurant. If I were in that club, I'd love it. The lady in the restaurant knows everybody's order, and the food looked great. Okay, so you start your day out, and they had very nice coffee. Okay, but I was bringing up this morning problem, and later the same week, I met a friend who, yeah, from Club 25, and they're moving to Waconia. And I said, oh, I love those people down there. And she said, well, when do they meet? I said, well, 7:30 at etc. And she's like, no, I'm not
Not
going
gonna
to it.
work.
I'm not going to that meeting. My club was specifically designed to be done by 6 o'clock so you could pick up your kids at daycare and not get a penalty.
Penalty. The penalty. Yeah.
You know how if you come after 6, you're a bad mommy and you have to pay extra? So we designed it so that wouldn't be the case. But anyway, what they're considering, I think, is a hybrid. Have a morning meeting, but then have a late afternoon meeting.
Mhm.
And for goodness sakes, you don't have to meet 4 times a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the people that we've talked to with clubs is they meet at one time, like an evening for one time per month, and then their
Yeah.
And then the
regular
other
3.
Some
their
are 2
regular
times a month is
programming.
all.
Some are
Mhm.
2 times a month. Some
Yeah. Yep.
Well, my club for a long time was 2 meetings a month. Then they kinda let go and went back to 3, and now they're all like, "Well, our attendance isn't as good." Well, that's because but here's the thing, if you go to 4 meetings a month, you do a service project, or you do a fellowship event, and you're on the board, that's 7 meetings a month.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do that? Nobody.
Yeah.
I mean,
Single and retired people.
Yep.
no, Tom Gump would do it. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
or Lloyd, somebody that
Yep.
Lloyd Campbell, they've got the energy to do it, but most of us can't devote that kind of time to doing it.
Mhm.
Well, and the 3 of us here, we talk a lot about this because we're kind of the anomaly, or like we're the member that doesn't feel great about Rotary just because of how much the commitment is, right? Like we've
Yeah.
got kids, and we all own businesses, and we all like,
Mhm.
it's like there's a million obstacles that make Rotary more difficult than it needs to be.
Right.
And
Mhm.
yet we're the target demographic right now in terms of growth, because
Yeah.
we're the ones that also want to do things to serve our
Mhm.
community and help. And so it's kind of that
I,
tension point, right? Like that we've
I
hit.
actually think cost is probably the number one objection. Like my club I just got my dues. There, it's $180 for district and um,
Is that a
international
quarter?
dues. No, that's for the year.
Oh, ours is like 250 a quarter.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we have that kind of a spread in our district, but there are so many people that cost is an objection. Their companies, like when I started, my company would pay for me with my dues and such, and even help with the 40 dozen roses. But we wanted to create something that would be very affordable for people, and there's a good trend toward that. And then unbundling meals where
Yeah.
where you don't have to have the meal cost included.
Mhm.
I went to the Dickinson Club, and they had a new young great gal as the incoming president, and she wasn't going to take the meal pack, do the meals because of the way this is the president of the club, and and this is a lovely club, so don't get me wrong, but the when I've met with all these billion boards, you know who's the most resistant to change, in my opinion, are the treasurers, because
Mhm.
they don't want anything to upset the money situation.
Yeah.
And I
I
I
think I
I
can
don't think
see
that was
Chad shaking his head over there right now.
okay, so and I talked to that
Yeah.
guy, and he said, "Well, these our dues are so low." And I said, "Well, what do you do?" I'm always interested, like, "What's your job?" "Well, I own the car dealership of the town." So he's sold every Rotarian a car. So
Mm.
for him, the dues are not an objection. So,
Right.
you know, but I think, you
It's a
try to
silly obstacle, right? Like it's a
Mhm.
silly obstacle to have the cost be the obstacle.
Yeah.
And so like if there's something that we can do as Rotary, as we're looking at things to make it more cost effective for people, to invite more and more people in, I think that that's a kind of a no-brainer, right?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we fundraise enough money. We have figured it out, okay? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're in a great club. The two Edina clubs are really juggernaut groups.
Yeah.
It's not the same elsewhere.
Yeah.
So we've been told. Yeah, it's and
you're in a bubble there.
We talk about this between Joe and I. Yeah, because
I just literally had somebody send me Instagram reel about Edina, and it's a bunch of like cake eating stuff, and I'm like, gosh.
It's just ongoing joke. Kate, I think that we are planning at some point or another having the first woman Rotarian ever on this podcast. Now, have you been introduced to that individual or know of that individual?
Way to put the screws to Tom and Lloyd for getting her onto the show.
We've got Kate on here. We're gonna do it.
What do you mean, the first woman?
Like she
challenged the
Dr. Whitlock?
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh my God, I love her. All right, so
do you have a good connection to her that you can connect to this show?
Hold the phone here.
Thanks, Kay.
Hold the phone. She's like, I'm gonna email it right now. Look at that for all of you listeners who are not watching.
I got Dr. Whitlock's. Okay.
Yeah.
So last September, when we had our joint effort to try to get the international convention in 2029, I'm at the meeting in Edina at the country club, and I don't know how. Anyway, I've talked about women in Rotary. Anyway, a lady out in Arizona invited me to be on the program with Dr. Whitlock. So in March, I was out there, and I had a one-on-one with her for an hour, and I'd never had a chance to meet her. But I'll tell you one thing. Well, she can tell you this story herself, but the thing that I was really surprised about was I said, geez, Dr. Whitlock, what did you have to do to get the Supreme Court to insist that Rotary admit women? And she said, well, that wasn't us. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I thought she had, personally driven to Washington and headed to the Supreme Court. The reason the case went there was that Rotary kept appealing the fact that they had won at the lower level.
Really?
It was Rotary's desire to keep women out, the organization, that they spent all that time and all that money. Now, in retrospect, would you think that was a good use of your time? But they were afraid to lose. I know personally people who just quit Rotary when women were admitted because they could not contemplate such an organization.
Unreal.
And now I always hear women do all the work, so we love having them. But do they put them in the leadership? Well, maybe not. It has to be very conscious, and I think the fact that Jennifer Jones is the first president and now Stephanie Urchick's coming in just 2 years later, that is saying, okay, Rotary supports women in the leadership of the organization. What they don't tell you, this is kind of on the dirty secret side of stuff, is how many clubs in the world do not allow women members. You guys know?
I'm
no,
willing
but I'm
to
sure
learn.
you're going to tell me.
Willing to
I've heard
learn.
a couple stories, but
Let's go.
Not at scale.
No, you don't know?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Well, there are a couple in the United States, the ones that still have held out because they don't care what the Supreme Court had to say about it. And I heard Jennifer Jones saying, and I was listening to something she was being interviewed for, and she said, I'm not afraid of those guys. I'm going to go to those clubs. And I'm thinking, you know what? You're the president. Shut them down. We don't need them. But I think the big worry is you're going to lose membership and you're going to lose money.
Yeah.
But we have 35,000 Rotary clubs, and somebody at headquarters told me there are, and they made it sound like it's just a few clubs in Germany and South America. There are actually 4,000 clubs that do not allow women around the world.
It's more than 10%,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's what the staffer told me. So, I guess there could be a fact check.
There could be more.
It is a lot, and nobody talks about it because they don't want to when you're trying to affect change in an organization, how hard do you hit it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Do you just like chop them off at the knees and say you're done?
Or is it a slow little peck? Just keep
Right. But like we were talking about, I heard
Well,
Jennifer.
it's
What?
Kay's
if
way.
it's K,
It's the
yeah,
velvet
if it's
hammer.
K's doing, yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't need them. We just, and what I find really amazing is at this age of my life, I'm like a change agent when I go out and
Mhm.
speak to groups. Like they haven't thought about these issues, and I've thought about it for a long, long time. So,
Yeah. Now, have
um,
you met Sharon Bloodworth?
I love Sharon. Yeah,
She had been on the show also
yeah.
just recently, and she had shared that she indeed herself she went to one of those Rotary clubs where it was
I think,
all men.
yeah, back in,
Do
And
you
I mean,
remember which one it was?
it was
I
in England
don't.
or Scotland. It was
Yeah.
back where she
And
was
she was like, yeah, it was. She goes, I don't care. She's kind of a no barriers
filming.
kind of gal, and I appreciate it
Well,
about her.
listen, there's big things ahead for Sharon because
Mhm.
she just put on that $3 million dinner
Yeah.
Yeah.
rate, for District 5950, raising
Mhm.
$3 million.
Mhm.
And she did the table decorations. I mean, she does it all, right? Yeah, and this is going to be her district governor year coming up.
Yep.
Yep.
She's going to be tremendous.
Mhm.
So,
We're excited for her.
So
Very
it's
excited.
interesting. Like I'm actually kind of interested. Like let's talk about that a little bit more. So say there's 3,000 clubs that still don't allow women. As a 4,000 clubs, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Um, as a woman, like how does that resonate to you? Like, okay, so the Supreme Court overturned this decision, and here we are in 2024, and there's still 4,000 clubs that we tolerate to not have
well,
women.
And
here's the thing. Well, I was the facilitator when Gordon McAnally was addressing PETS, the President-elect training, and this was Zoom. And I said to him, I said, well, how do you feel about women in Rotary? And he goes, well, we just need good Rotarians. That is not, if you had an organization, I don't know where you guys work, but if you had a university or a law firm or a hospital, and you said, you know what, it's okay that we only have 30% of our customers or our clients are women, right? Or you're the grocery store, you're not going to be satisfied until you're getting all the potential people. And I feel like we're trying to do a big job, eradicate polio plus a lot of other stuff with one arm tied behind our back. And we
I,
just don't
yeah,
even.
I also think that we're kind of missing the forest through the trees too. Like you think about what is our objective as Rotary clubs is to be a reflection of our community.
Right.
And if you aren't a
Mhm.
reflection of your community, whether it's women, whether it's people of
Mhm.
color, whether it's men, whatever it is, like then there's a problem. Like for example, we did have a club from Lake
Lake Elmo.
Elmo that's 75% women, and they're having trouble growing. And
Yeah.
you kind of go, well, are you a reflection of your community? It's great that you have a club that's 75% women. That's great. That's bucks the trend. But are you missing something that resonates in your community that would help you with membership? I think sometimes we do miss the forest through the trees with this
Yeah.
sometimes. And it's about reflecting your community. And no doubt 50% of your communities are women.
Yeah.
Like that's just the way
Or
that it goes.
Right.
And so if your
Chad's
club
saying more.
dynamics, aren't half women, you're missing the boat. Like you're
Well,
missing the mission of what we're trying to do.
I went and spoke a couple months ago. I spoke to a club in Florida, and they had like 37% women. It's a more of a retiree group.
Florida.
Mhm.
But more than my club for sure. But anyway, so I give an impassioned women in Rotary, let's go militant, because at this point, I'm not trying to advance up the chain. If I offend somebody, it doesn't super bother me, right? But anyway, I give this, and people are fist bumping me, and they're so excited. And then at the very end, they said, "Oh, and Joe has got the joke of the day." And he tells a joke. It involves an ostrich, and Jeannie, and anyway, the punchline is just a horrible misogynistic joke. The day I'm there talking about women in Rotary. And I had met him earlier in the meeting. He seemed like a nice fellow, but he could not connect that what he was saying was offensive to the people in that room, or a bunch of us, right? So I've decided, I was focusing on like reaching more people, like try to speak at the international convention or to be at the district conference. My current mission is I'm going micro. I'm going club to club to club to talk about these issues, because when you do that, I think people are more receptive, because my experience is a lot of the people that are in the clubs love their club. They know it's failing, but they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And so I give like a little bit of a roadmap. Meet in the late afternoon.
Yeah.
Have an environmental theme. Put less emphasis on attendance. Have fun projects. Have fellowship. There's some really easy things you could do, but it's hard to do if you're changing how they've always done it.
So, Kay, we just learned about as you're a district governor, right? And then you're coming out of your role as a district governor for that specific year. Then you've got these initiatives after the fact. And so I want to kind of round this out.
Like, you mean like a job opportunity for 4 years after? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to help the listeners understand how you came to doing this Women in Rotary initiative. I mean, does that make sense? Because I'm not quite sure we had started off having the conversation about women in Rotary and what you're doing and your initiative behind it.
I guess I'm an intense feminist. And Emily's all for that, by the way. So I just decided, when I left my old club, I did quit them in protest. I'd been in there for 9 years, and they could not look around the room and find a single woman that could be in the leadership. And I didn't care if it was me, right? Even though I certainly am capable, but no one. So I left because I felt like that club, and I just was at their dinner auction. So I have many friends in that group, but it kind of took me leaving to shake up a few folks to say, we don't need to lose people like her,
Yeah.
Okay. And the district governor at the time came to me and he said, Kay, you are fully capable of starting your own club. Why don't you do that? And I did. Right. And that's where I created a club that got rid of everything I didn't like. Right. We don't sing. We don't kick the golden can. We've eliminated a lot of the.
Yeah, wait, what? Can we pause for just a second? And I don't understand this. What is this?
You can get rid of some of those things, and the meeting is shorter so that people want to come to the meeting more.
Are those real things, though? I mean, I do not understand. Is this real?
I know singing for some, but kicking the golden can. Can you go into that one a little bit?
Yeah, I didn't even know.
You know what that is? The fellowship report?
No.
Oh my gosh, so many clubs do this. They if you make an announcement or you're in the paper, then you have to kick the golden can and put $1 in or whatever. And I was up at a club. Oh gosh, it was Thief River Falls, I think. And there was an old guy, blowhard, honest to goodness, and he went on and on and on about Big Ten football. And I'm like
listening to this right now, going, "Hey!"
He kept going on and on and on. And I've met many people like this. And I said, finally, how much are you giving for this announcement? And he said, well, it's $1. I said, well, you've just taken up $10 of time. So give more, because you
see concept.
Right? Come on.
Huh? I was like,
that's good.
No, and
back to Women in Rotary.
Yeah. Well, so you just have to, and I did find at almost every meeting, somebody would come up to me and they'd say, I've been in Rotary for 30 or 40 or 50 years, and that's one of the best district governor speeches I've heard. Now, I don't think it was because my speech was that great. I think the bar was low and too much statistics. And so I told some stories, but there was a club I visited in Accra, Ghana, and it was a new club, like 4 years old. They met in a hotel conference room, no food. Anyway, we get there, and immediately they all start singing for a half hour. And we're all my mom and my daughter and my husband and I were all startled. Anyway, at the end of the singing, the president gets up and says, "We have a terrible problem in our club." We're waiting, like, what is it? She goes, "The meetings are too long." Okay, so I'm thinking, again, I'm never going to be here again. I raised my hand and I said, maybe a little less singing, right? And my husband later told me, he said, "Kay, that was the most offensive thing you could have said to that group of people, because that was their sacred cow. They love the singing. They're not willing to give it, how about 2 songs instead of 10 to make it relevant so the meetings aren't, dragging on 2 hours, or so that the non-singers don't like it, or, you just have to do a little market research of your members, right? Do a survey. What do they like? What do they not like? So my thing kind of morphed from women to just general change and talking about that issue. What do you like about your club, or you don't like?
Hey, we're the only ones that ask questions around.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
Chad told me it was going to be a conversation.
It
so.
is.
It
Dang
is. And so let's have the conversation.
You are an attorney.
I'll go first. Yeah, I'll go first. I will say, Chad is one of the newest Rotarians of all 3 of us.
Yep.
And in my I will say short period of time being a Rotarian, the individuals in that group have quickly become like family.
Oh, good.
And the other just quick little add I want to put in here is we just recently had a baby. I shouldn't say recently, she's just a little over a year old, but when she was born, they rallied to have a food train for us, and that was so special. And it meant the world to us to understand not only do we have our own like family as a village, but our Rotarians rallied as a village too. So it was a kind of a little bit of an emotional tie for me personally, but that's what I have enjoyed about it's you just walk in and it feels like family.
And what don't you like? I stopped.
Circle back to me.
Of course. I was waiting for that answer. I was like, wait a second, she needs a minute.
I do. Yeah, I do. I'll think on it. But yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I would say my favorite thing about our club is I love the speakers. I like having somebody come in, share stories, share about an organization. I think that's really important to understand some of the organizations that we're supporting, some of the things that Rotary International and the district are doing, and then just having some really cool things to take away, great stories. Least favorite thing about our club, I'd love to see us be more sincere in our adaptability. Like I think we do think like I think our club naturally takes on challenges of going, okay, we need to be fostering change, but like truly following through with that change. And hey, I can point the thumb. Like I'm one of them that could definitely be an agent of change and proponent of things. But yeah, I mean, because I think that we're doing some really great things.
Yep.
And I think we're driving some really great change, but we're not all in, if that makes any sense. It's we're just checking the box so that we remain, one of the top clubs who gets all the recognition and stuff versus actually being agents of change. Sorry, Edina Morningside. That was just a little truth bomb. And I think if we all search that, it would be honest and accurate.
Okay. Go ahead, Jack.
So like Joe, I like the speakers. I like the meetings, and I also have enjoyed, and I think we're lucky in our club that you can try and evolve it, and there's not, I don't think, systematic pushback. And there's, you bring ideas, they're receptive. I think that being a new member, even just working on different projects, that's a very welcoming environment when you're trying to serve and they're willing to have it. Negative for me, well, the one thing, and I haven't been there yet, is the vocational, and now we call it membership happy hour. I think we need to do a better job of inviting more people and really communicating it better, because I think
it's becoming a larger component.
yeah, but we've talked about this not just at not in the club level, but Rotary seems to shy away from the networking aspect on top of things, and that it's, we are there to serve and we do a ton of stuff, but there's more to Rotary than just that. And so I don't know that it's just our club, but that's, I think, something that, along with not being a good promoter of themselves at Rotary, I also think there's this culture that doesn't, and I understand how that stuff works, but that would be my
the newest club in my district is called Missouri River. It's in Bismarck, and what it was a bunch of people who used to be in like a BNI networking kind of group, and I think that fees got really out of hand. So our past district governor Blaine Johnson worked with this group to make them Rotarians. And the way he explained it to me is kind of like getting back to the days of Paul Harris, where you it was for networking. And that's why there were people from different professions, right? So that you weren't all dentists or all attorneys or whatever. I kept asking him, well, what's the Rotary component of the new Rotary Club? And I think they've got the networking piece down. And I'm sure the service will come along, but it's a really different model than what we've been seeing, kind of lately.
But it's interesting, like what an interesting model though, because you go, all right, BNI just like more than doubled their fees, and you go, all right, you've got an organization like Rotary that's full of support and organization that can help you organize, and then you can facilitate more of a BNI setting, more of a networking setting. But the other side of that is to go, how do we still honor Rotary and make sure that we're a service-minded organization? And that could be as simple as like, 1 out of the 4 times you meet, you go do a service project or something like that. Like, I don't see how that's a, but what an interesting model like that. I've never thought of that.
Yeah. When I talked to Dr. Whitlock out in Arizona, the one thing I said, and this lady's 89, she's going to the Singapore convention, she's great. But I said something and she went like this, and it was that my club doesn't fundraise. And that was how it was designed. Now, for traditional Rotarians, that is what they think Rotary should be. My vision was we should do hands-on service, and we will be able to keep our costs lower for the members, and we're going to be able to attract people who typically weren't Rotary members in the past because they couldn't afford it.
So can you talk a little bit more about that? So do you guys just partner with other things? Like, do you just provide human resource? Like, hey, we've heard about somebody, or like, are you putting on the projects, or are you just partnering with other organizations?
We do a project a month.
Okay.
And we have to we've got a project gal. We got to rein her in because she will do 3 projects a month because she loves projects. Okay. But we do adopt a highway. We ring bells for the Salvation Army. But a lot of our things are environmentally related. We've pulled a lot of buckthorn over the years. Lately, we had a whole series of building bee pollinators, right? Hands-on, build the thing, put it in a good location. So, but it allows people to use kind of a sweat equity. We can partner with other clubs. And you were asking like about my post DG year. Actually, that's what I'm trying to do in Duluth Superior. Our clubs in Fargo Moorhead and our clubs in Thunder Bay, they are tight. They meet every month. They cooperate on all these projects. They're just awesome. I want to do that in Duluth Superior, where I am, because there are 5 clubs here. And if we coordinated more, my club's got people power and the other clubs have money. So try to work together on, initiatives or whatever. So
Kay, one quick question, since we answered the question, can you answer the question for your club? What's your favorite thing and what could be improved opportunity?
ooh. Well, because I was the founder, everything was how I wanted it. But what I learned, and my club is not immune to this. We just had it's all about people, right?
Yeah.
And I had to keep putting out little fires at clubs because so-and-so would get mad at so-and-so, and they didn't think they were doing it the right way or whatever. That recently visited my club, where club officer, club member, it became a drama of personalities dragging the rest of us into it, and I got, I had to get involved, and so I don't like that. On one case, I had to bring in a special envoy, one of our past district governors, to try to smooth the feathers. There was a club in Perham, which a club I really liked, but there was a lady who was like a longtime person in the leadership. And after I was there, the board was going to try some of the things I had recommended. And she got so incensed by it, she just quit because she could not take the idea that her Rotary Club was going to change. So I guess that's the part that I have found to be a little, and it's touched my own club, even though I've tried to keep us out of that a little bit. You're dealing with, it's just like people at work, right? Or customers or, whatever. People don't get along and you have to figure out how to best get them keeping their minds on what the real job is.
Well, Kay, we're gonna have to get out of here. I can't believe this is already done. We're like way late on time, but we could have gone for another couple hours. But
I know we'll have to have you back on, Kay.
Absolutely.
Well, I invite you to come up to Duluth, and we've got a nice little patio out here. Not today, but so if you come by, you'll get wine or something.
Sounds good.
You have Kelly.
That's mine. That's me.
Thank you.
You and I'll enjoy a glass of wine together.
And I will say, because you said you were married, that is one of the big opportunities, is to bring in spouses or children or parents or whatever. We tend, the old school folks always felt that this was their thing and their family was outside of it. I think unless we bring family into it, it's not going to resonate as well for people. So, and my husband's a member of Eco Club, and he gets involved in a lot of things just because I'm making them, but he's enjoying it. So anyway, thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was such an honor, and we look forward to the next time. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Kelly Kirk.
I'm Joe Kirk.
And I'm Chad Larson. We'll be back.
Thanks, everybody.